Good evening. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. My name is Steve Rowe. I'm the chairperson for the Elections Committee, and we're glad to welcome you here tonight to the first of two forums that we have planned for an opportunity for you to get to know the candidates. I want to introduce the Election Committee. Mark Hines and Evan Smith are the timekeepers tonight. They have signed. They're going to keep our candidates on time. Steve Havinger will actually be asking the questions. Let me give you a little bit of additional information. Rick Turner is right here. Rick is, and we do have some cards. If you'd like to ask any questions of the candidates, you can fill out a card, and there's pens over here. There's some cards, index cards you can use to write questions, and we'll try and ask some of those if we can fit them into the schedule.
If you'd like one, raise your hand. I'll go bring you one over.
I just want to clarify one thing. There was a handout that we actually printed yesterday morning that showed 5 candidates for the board of directors. Unfortunately, Brenda decided that it just was not going to work in her schedule for this year to run. So we have 4 candidates that are running. So we welcome the candidates here tonight and look forward to a good conversation together. I want to thank all of you for coming. Thank you to those who will be watching on Channel 78 and also through the Ustream and the YouTube video eventually, hopefully. I'd like to ask you to silence your cell phones if you haven't already to help us avoid that kind of interruption. In the interest of saving time, please do not applaud after candidates' comments. We're here to listen to the candidates, so please avoid communication with your neighbors as well or shout-outs during the candidate conversation. That will really help us to have a good forum. The candidates have been seated in the order they appear on the ballot, and each will be giving a 3-minute opening statement in that order. Their 3-minute closing statements will be in reverse of order. Questions from the forum have been submitted by Ocean Pines residents. We've got over 45 questions that were submitted. We won't ask all of those tonight. You can probably be glad for that. But the election committee has attempted to pick representative questions that will get at some of the issues that we think are the concern to the people of the Pines. We do plan to hold another forum on July 22nd at 10 o'clock in the morning here in this room. So we encourage you as associate members to submit your questions as well for the July forum if you have some. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Havinger. He will be asking the questions of our candidates. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening. Well, he identified the schedule and the agenda, so we'll get right into it. Colette, would you provide your opening statement, please?
I need to turn this on. This is on.
Should be on.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. Thanks to all of you for coming. Steve, you got a pretty good crowd for us tonight. I appreciate that. How many of you were here last year for the forum? A few of you. You may remember what the candidates told you last year. Everybody last year seemed to talk about how conflict-laden the board is. Marty, you've been coming here for a few years. Conflict on the board has been a thing for quite a long time. I'm all for healthy conflict that's about issues. But like you guys, I don't like the conflict we see now. This is conflict that's about personal attacks and personal business interests. That's not healthy conflict. Our board needs a psychologist. Where's Dr. Phil when we need him? Last year's candidates promised to bring business and finance experience to our board. We heard about competitive bidding, we heard about due diligence, we heard about Stephen Covey and principled leadership, we heard about financial accountability and balanced budgets. That all sounded pretty good. And all 4 of those candidates are now sitting on the board. Did you get what was promised? How about this year's $270,000 deficit? What about having a board member as acting GM, despite obvious conflicts of interest, for almost a year, who spent the year sowing controversy that impugns the character of honest volunteers and employees? Is that what you wanted? How about pitting families against seniors at the Oasis pool, the beach club personnel and parking issues, the pirate ship, homeowner fees for pickleball and gym use, the $170,000 GM salary? What happened to that financial accountability we were promised? What happened to those sound business practices? Where's that promise of principled leadership? Whose agenda did all that serve? Marty, I think we have a swamp that needs draining. Having business types on the board didn't bring what was promised. Bringing personal business interests to our board hasn't been good business for our nonprofit, member-owned association. What do people like Dr. Phil and me have to offer? We are trained to bring a fresh perspective to persistent problems. Our research is published only if it brings new light to vexing issues. People come to us for therapy because we deliver on our promise to apply a fresh perspective to solving problems that have been resistant to change. You won't be able to vote for Dr. Phil this year. I don't think he got his documents in on time, but I ask you to consider voting for me. Thank you.
As a lifelong resident of the Eastern Shore and Ocean Pines community, I've cultivated relationships and memories immeasurable to my family and I. Ocean Pines community has given me so much over the years, from employment at its clubs to business opportunities and most notably my home. As a multi-year homeowner and a local business owner, I'm seeking to serve on the board that wants to promote a vision for our community as well as encourage first-time home buyers to want to live here, not to be scared their home and livelihood would be scrutinized. The amenities in the community need to be self-sustaining and consistent, not a financial burden on our community. Ocean Pines needs real leadership, not nepotism and back channels to guide and delegate the departments. I believe in transparency for all homeowners and to keep moralities embedded in my everyday duties. If elected, my immediate priorities would be working with the board members to formulate a fall-winter plan for the code, much needed. Assistance in the transition to the new general manager or assistance in hiring another one if there's not one in place at the time of the election. Discussing options for Northgate entrances and for all the outdated structures, including mailboxes, etc. And reviewing the financial budget quarterly rather than annually, so the board may coordinate with department heads to ensure we're on track for success for any given season. My value for the board as a board member will be my tireless work ethic, unwavering principles, and my ability to succeed at difficult tasks. All in all, my goal is to promote the community and its amenities to sustain the value of the communities as a whole. Thank you.
I was going to try to do this without my glasses, but my eyes, as I've gotten older, failed me. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Doug Parks. I'm currently sitting on the board of directors. And I've been an Ocean Pines resident since 2007. I also formerly served on the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee as its chairman. And first of all, I wanted to take a minute to thank everybody for taking time out of their day to come here and listen to all of the things that the candidates have to say on these important issues. And also wanted to take time to thank the Elections Committee for not only putting this together, for all the tireless work that they did in getting the campaign issues put together and the slate for candidates set up. So, as I mentioned earlier, I am on the board of directors, and we've accomplished a number of things this year. Among them, the renovations to the beach club, the golf course clubhouse, the bridges, and of course the Mankland Creek playground. But we've also at the same time run into some challenges, and quite frankly, we need to get better. We need to hold ourselves accountable. There are some things that we should have done that we didn't get done, but at the very least we know that they need to be done. Okay. the focus isn't on where we are now, but it needs to be on where we need to be going forward. Those renovations that I mentioned, they're behind us. They're done. The emphasis needs to be on what we need to do to benefit the community going forward. So a couple of things come to mind. Number one, we have to finish the process of hiring a permanent GM. That's first and foremost. We have a meeting tomorrow to vet the 11 candidates that have been presented to us by the Novak Group. We also have a follow-up meeting on July 6th and 7th to do the final vetting of the top 3 candidates with personal one-on-one interviews with the intent of being able to make a selection soon thereafter. Okay. We also need to address the Cove, formerly the Yacht Club. Everyone knows it's no secret. There are operational, we'll call them deficiencies. There are many areas where we need to improve. We also have to look at what the long-term vision for the Cove really is. Do we have the core competency to run a restaurant business? Apparently not. We need to seriously consider other options, bringing in a professional proprietor, bringing in a restaurateur with that kind of management experience that can help run that environment and can sort of consider leasing the place out. But we have to come up with another solution. Continuing to move forward with negative revenue, even in the most profitable months, is not the way to continue to use that facility and provide services to the membership. So the other last thing I want to touch on as far as future planning, we really need to have a comprehensive capital improvement plan. Now that a number of those renovations in the big facilities we talked about are completed, we really need to focus on what needs to be done further on down the road, 5 years, 10 years from now. So along with effective budget planning and quite frankly more involvement with our advisory committees, these are just a few of the items that really as a board we need to get better at. I'd be honored to continue my work as a director to serve the community, and I thank you for your time.
Hello. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Marty Clark, or Dr. No, if you remember me from the old days. Whether you're here to support my campaign or you're dead against it, we all have one thing in common, and that's the best interest of Ocean Pines, where we live. I'm going to break out of my written text for a minute because I'd like to address something Dr. Horn said. A $273,000 deficit budget, not bad. In 2012 and 2013, it was double that. It's a guess. This board that's sitting today deserves our thanks. They've accomplished more good in Ocean Pines in the last year than I can remember since Tim Stoner. They missed the budget by it wasn't their budget. That budget was prepared by the previous board under Bob Thompson. Okay, you know who I am. I want to thank the election committee too. They're doing a great job. They're dedicated, hardworking guys, thanks. And staff that have put this together tonight. For those of you that don't know me, I've been a member of Ocean Pines since 1977, which is why I look so old. My family and I moved here year-round in '92. I raised 2 beautiful, and that's not true. My wife raised 2 beautiful, accomplished daughters. We ran a fairly successful real estate development company here. It's still in business today. Much of my real estate development background, I've been with Caliban since I was there in 1970 in Ocean City, has been homeowner associations and condominiums. I'm an active and long-term member of the Community Association Institute, which is the benchmark for our industry. I assisted on the steering committee under Governor Hughes that wrote the original Condominium Act, which has morphed into what is now the Homeowner Association Act that governs us. Since 1989, I've served on too many advisory committees to mention. I'm proud that I was elected in 2007 to serve on the board of directors and again in 2012. And as soon as I find my notes, I have a reputation at Ocean Pines as being sort of a pig-headed gadfly. You know, I'll take it. My due diligence and commitment to the membership has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars in the last 12 years. I treat every dollar of your assessment money like it was mine. Thanks for your consideration. Let the games begin. How do I turn this off?
First question, and again, will be addressed in ballot order with Colette opening the remarks. First question, please give us your thoughts on the OPA Reserve Fund. We'll be asking 2 financial questions. This is just the first, but please try to focus on the OPA Reserve Funds and your thoughts on that.
My view of the OPA reserve funds is that they are like an insurance policy for us. They are funds that we need to have in place for catastrophes that come up unexpectedly. The infestation of the worms in the bulkheads and the sinkholes is a perfect example of something that came up unexpectedly. Fortunately, we have the funds to be able to cover that. If that happens every year, we need to know that those funds are there. The reserve fund study, in my view, needs to be updated so that we're sure that we have funds that are going to buy police vehicles, that are going to buy computers, that are going to buy desks, that are going to buy all of the things that our association needs to run its business. I know a lot of people think about the reserve funds as being just about buildings. It's not just about buildings. It's about all of the things that support our employees to do the work of running this great organization and making our community great for us. Thank you.
I believe the reserve fund is, I believe the reserve fund is obviously we're going to obviously need it for catastrophes. Some of the things that I've heard with the canals and ditches and maybe sewage, some of those things that have kind of been overlooked, and also supplies needed by the employees, trucks, looking at like a 5 or 10 year plan, like looking ahead, knowing what we're going to be needing in the future, and what and technology, like doing updates, as well as abiding by codes for the county. Thank you.
So with regard to the reserves funds, number one, if you look at the amount that we currently have, I think it's over $4 million right now. Coupled with the fact that the several major renovations have already been done, I think we're in pretty good shape with regard to the major amenities and the things that would be addressed by the reserve fund. Additionally, in this year's budget, there was an allocation of $650,000, I think to the tune of about $77 per homeowner, with regard to contributing to that fund and continuing to contribute to that fund. I think we need to take a long, hard look at next year's budget and look at exactly where that fund level should be. I think we have plenty of room, and I think we have an opportunity to look at passing on any potential savings to the membership in the form of a reduced assessment. Again, the major things are behind us. Certainly, I'm not trying to emphasize the need for removal of the reserve fund. It's an absolute necessity, whether we use the cost method or the allocation method. We need to look at the product life of not only the larger assets, but as Colette mentioned, there are smaller assets that are associated with the operational aspects of Ocean Pines that also are part of the things that would affect the reserve study that would be funded by reserve funding going forward. But again, the emphasis needs to be on looking at the correct levels of that funding for reserves going forward and make sure that we are funding it in exactly the right way to make sure that we're not overcharging and taking money from the association and putting it in what arguably could be called a slush fund for future use later on. So fiduciary responsibilities, of course, with regard to the reserve fund.
Where's Gene Ringsdorf when we need him? Reserves can get way complicated because we make them complicated. They're not. The best example I ever saw was if Ocean Pines buys a beach chair that costs $100 and it's got a 10-year life, every year Ocean Pines should take $10 out of the assessment and put it in a reserve. So at the end of the 10 years, we got $100 to buy another beach chair. That's all it's supposed to do. Bulkheads, I think that's sort of a straw man. First off, most of the people in this room don't pay for the bulkheads. Teeny little amount. The bulkheads are the responsibility of the waterfront property owners. That's a separate reserve. We have a replacement and maintenance reserve. That money is for the chair, the windows in this building, no new buildings. We pulled it off at the yacht club, but legally, in most states, maybe this state, let's not make too big a deal out of it, that's new capital. It's a new building, it's new capital, it does not come out of reserves. The reserves are to keep a balance, 100%. The windows for this building, the floor for this building, the roof of this building, not this building. Don't mean to correct my friend Doug. As of today, we have over $7 million in the bank for reserves. We need more reserve money like a snake needs a pair of shoes. I think we stop this nonsense, fund what we need. If the worms are the problems, and by the way, it's not worms causing the problem, it's undermining of the bulkheads because people did things they shouldn't have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second question is additionally on financial aspects, but aside from reserves, what are your thoughts on Ocean Pines finances?
Go on first.
Oh, no, Nicole, I'm sorry. We're rotating down now. We're moving this way.
Sorry. I believe the finances, obviously, once the new GM comes into place, we need to be able to keep our assessment, all of our amenities. I know most of them are doing quite well, but if they make money, we can put them in other places. I think why not? Like, it's still a business, whether we're a nonprofit. If it makes money, I mean, we can use it in other areas. If it happens to lower some assessments, then so be it. It's kind of great for everybody. I think diversifying and having things for, I guess, all demographics would help everyone kind of fund all of those different amenities. So I think keeping, sorry, I'm not very good at public speaking. I haven't really done it before, if you can't tell. Okay. I think, and like I said in my opening statement, I think going forward and having an annual budget meeting, you can't really assess things as they come. So you can't say, okay, the first quarter, where were we, you can't fix things as you go. You just have the whole year come around, and then when everyone sits down to talk about it, they're like, oh, what happened? Like, well, we didn't talk about it the whole time. You need to, kind of go along with throughout the year. That way we can make changes as needed, whether it be like employment, staff, managers, and things of that nature. Thank you.
With regard to finances, I revert back to the budget that we looked at this past year that was prepared. It came from a model that said the current assessment was $921. What can we get for that $921 and base the budget off of that? That's, to me, the wrong way to approach the budget. If you look around in the public statement I made, you look around the area, our assessment dollars based on what we have are pretty reasonable. However, when we start a budget, we really need to look at contractual spend, for things that we have, new capital, and what it takes to actually operationalize the environment. And if we don't look at that, where we are looking at ways to potentially make more efficient use of the monies, make more efficient use of the processes, look at the business operation and see where there are efficiencies to be made, one of the fiduciary responsibilities is to hand those savings back over to the constituency, to the membership. And I publicly, if you'll go back to the videos, know that I did not vote for the budget this year. There was $791,000 worth of increased labor costs, and we didn't do anything materially different in the operation than we did the year before. I had a very tough time swallowing the idea of that kind of an increase. Now, some of that increase was certainly justified, all right, but the full amount of it was not, and I really felt that we missed the boat, or could have done a better job, let's put it that way, in being very efficient and very responsible with membership money. So from a budget perspective, we're fine. We obviously run our environments the way we should. I don't think the burden's too much, but we shouldn't get enamored with that, and we should actually continue to work towards trying to minimize the assessment as much as possible while still providing the amenities that this community needs.
Well, we touched on reserves. We have $7 million in the bank. I don't think we need to address reserves. I think we need to fund depreciation. We've been doing that for 40 years, and it's worked. We built this building, no special assessment, no 5-year funding plan. We had the money in reserves. The budget. The board's charged, the general manager's charged to present a zero-based budget. What that means is, what's it going to cost next year to run this place? Fire, police, public works, etc. Divided by 8,452 members equals the assessment. It's not the way we did it last year. Now, I'm not picking on last year's board. It's hard to remember the goal was to clean out the sewer when you're fighting off the alligators. They were all basically new. They started with the assessment. That's like going out to buy a car and say, I'm going to spend $100,000. And the first place you stop is the Volkswagen dealer. You're done. We need to stop thinking about it's our job or the board's job to hold an assessment. It isn't. The job is to do a good budget, as good as you can, divided by 8452. That's your assessment. If it goes up, it goes up. If it goes down, like it should have last year by, I believe, easily $100, it goes down. It's not the board's job to create a savings account for us. Just not. So I think we're doing an all right job, but we need to really do a good budget. And if the assessment goes down, God bless America. Thank you.
Back to Colette, please.
Thank you. I agree with Doug and Marty that we're in a pretty healthy position financially overall. I do take exception with the idea that going $270,000 over budget in a given year is okay. If we do that every year, where are we going to make those funds up? Eventually, it's going to come back on increased assessments. So we need to be accountable. We can't blame somebody else for writing a budget that we're now willing to live with. If I budgeted in my household budget for a new refrigerator, but somewhere in the middle of the year my washer and dryer went up, I need that washer and dryer. I'm not going to buy that refrigerator. I'm going to buy the washer and dryer. We need to make those kind of trade-offs here in our budget so that we are living within the budget that we're set. I agree with Marty and Doug that we need to set the best budget possible. We need to be responsible in doing that, but then we need to go forward and make those tough decisions to live within that budget. I want to go back a little bit to the reserve fund because I think there's a little confusion there yet. There are two ways of looking at the reserve fund. If we're funding for depreciation, we're funding for what we paid for that item 10 years ago when we first bought it, or 30 years when we first put it in place. At the time that we're replacing it, it's not going to cost, that $100 chair is not going to cost $100. Now with inflation and changes in the economy, that $100 chair is going to cost $150. So if we only put $100 in the bank for that chair, we're going to have trouble when it comes time to replacing it. So when we do the reserve study, we need to look at not just depreciation reserve study, we need to do a replacement reserve study. We need to look at, we do have kind of out of control payroll costs, and we need to look at bringing that into reason and being more responsible overall at staying within a break-even budget. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question will start with Doug. Please tell us your knowledge and thoughts on back assessments.
Well, by back assessments, I would assume you mean assessments that have not been paid and are not up to date. Well, there's in the resolutions, there is a stipulation about the requirement for paying, along with the fact that there are late charges associated with it. Now, there was a discussion in the past with regard to the amount of percentage we can charge in overdue or late payments, and according to Maryland law, I think the average was between 6 and 8%. We in Ocean Pines have 20%, but we're well within the legal limits. We actually address that on a number of occasions. So, it's hard. You look at some of the reasons people couldn't pay their assessment. You obviously have to take that into consideration. But again, and this may sound insensitive, we're not a charity. We are here as a homeowners association. Every one of us who have moved in here have made the commitment to meet the assessments. and and to ensure that we abide by those rules that require an assessment to be paid. Now, I think there needs to be flexibility, especially if you work with parties to ensure that they're trying to make the assessments. They can't make the full payment. I'm sure we can be creative and be flexible with regard to allowing for some form of graduated payment or payment plan, but certainly we also have to realize that some of it's going to have to be written up. And I think I heard a statistic that as of now, I believe 98% of our assessments are collected. I think we're only 2 to 2.5% of our total assessments that are uncollected, and that's pretty good based on the industry standard that I'm aware of. So we're fine, but we can't ignore that, and I think we need to do whatever we can to understand two things. One, those that can pay, we need to be flexible and allow them to pay, and those who can't pay, it'll just be debt that we have to write off.
May I ask you to repeat the question?
Certainly. Would you please tell us your knowledge and thoughts on the back assessments owed Ocean Pines?
It's a lot of money. I mean, I haven't been as close to it as I was when I was on the board, but it's well over $1 million. In the big picture, you have $1 million, $1 million. What's $1 million? I think that back when I was on the board, I pushed and finally got us, under great resistance, to print the names of the homeowners with unpaid assessments in the newspaper. It's right in our DRs. It's one of the tools that we're charged with and given to collect this money. Now, that once. There's something that I find amazing is our unpaid assessment property owners are also the same people whose homes look like pigsties. It's almost hand in hand. I mean, we have some people that have run into financial problems. I think we should bend over backwards to help them. But that doesn't mean letting them off the hook for their assessments. So, I'm sorry, I say the minute they go 6 months, I take them to the small claims court and sue them. That's what they do in most associations. That's what they do in a condominium association. I served on the board right here in Ocean Pines, and our accounts receivable, small 206 unit condominium, is 0. Because we sue them at whatever the absolute minimum is, and then we force foreclosure. Ocean Pines puts a lien on it, or in the past, puts a lien on it, figures the job's done. It's not done. These people aren't paying you, but they're watching widescreen TVs and tapping away on their computers. I don't get it. Next.
Thanks. I'm not sure these people are looking at their widescreen TVs. I think these are some people who have fallen on some real hard times. We know about soaring costs of healthcare. We know about, a lot of the financial difficulties. We do have a very strong collection rate. We are collecting 97%, roughly, of all of what's owed to us. And that is high for the standards of our of HOAs and other businesses. But our uncollected assessment figures have grown significantly over the past 7 years. We do need to be diligent in our collection efforts. We do maintain current figures to be up to date in that process. I received a copy of the current policies from the acting GM, and these are aggressive policies that are being pursued. They begin with, letters, and they go all the way up to filing of lawsuits with the goal of securing judgments that allow for garnishing wages and bank accounts and so forth. But we need to be realistic about the people's ability to pay. We can only squeeze so much out of a turnip, and let's not be in the business of running people in the ground who have real financial difficulties. That 20% interest rate that we're able to put on these past due bills is a pretty high interest rate that offsets some of the costs of the bad debt that we're going to have to write off. It also offsets some of the cost of the collections themselves. We need to look at the collection measures, the collection company that we're using. Right now we're using a law firm. Law firms are pretty expensive as a first measure of addressing collections. I didn't see any indication of competitive bidding in selecting our collection procedure, and I think we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence in getting the best value for our collection efforts.
I was thinking about either having some sort of, I know we like to work, obviously people do fall on hard times, and getting in some kind of payment plan. Obviously the legwork for doing the collections, the 20% I think is sufficient enough. And even, I know for myself when I pay taxes, I pay quarterly the year before. That way when the following year comes, it could be something that, we can kind of get ahead of. In another sense, if we're thinking about staffing and a lot of the employment, the rates are pretty high, maybe donating their time if they can't pay, maybe to be able to volunteer and help with some of like the events and some of our amenities might be a good option for them so they can donate their time rather than, if they're not able to pay. I think that might be a nice option to look into.
Thank you. The next question will start with Marty. We're going to ask you 2 questions about amenities. And this first question, we would like you to focus on your thoughts about the Cove at Mumford's Landing, also called the Yacht Club.
In the last 6 months, the Yacht Club has lost $328,000. If this was our money, just us in the room, we all bought the Yacht Club. I don't think there's one of us crazy enough to open up in the off season to lose $328,000. It makes 0 business sense. I would shutter that club around the end of September, winterize the pipes, and not reopen it again until April if I was king. It's the way it was done here until 1988. Guys, if it was our money, yours and mine, would we open up to lose $328,000? No, we wouldn't. And if there's anybody that would, cover the loss and we'll stay open. Asking the 8,400 people that aren't here to do it is criminal.
Down to Colette, please.
There you go.
Thank you. If we were going to use that logic, we would be looking at the Orioles during the winter season. How much do you think they lose when they're not playing baseball? Are we going to shut them down because they lose money in the off season? I don't think so. We just invested over $5 million into that yacht club. I think it would be foolhardy and unfair to all of us who contributed that money to shut it down for half of the year. There are a lot of people in this community who rely on that as a meeting place. I'm a girl from Wisconsin, and having a meeting place in the wintertime when you can't meet up with your friends outdoors is a very important value. In Wisconsin, we met up in the local pub, and we met in the wintertime. We had a great time together and pursued our social life. Our members need that here as well. I think the Yacht Club is a unique opportunity to provide a meeting place year-round for our members, and but the real problem is solving the management problem, the quality of service, the quality of product, so that the summer months can pay for the winter months, just like the Orioles summer months pay for the rest of their year. Thank you.
I'm going to share a little of my experience with a local business that my husband works at. We open consistently, so people know that you're always open is key. It does take some time. I think I agree with Colette, like starting with the GM and coming all the way down for management. Once we get that into place, you should make, similar money in the wintertime, because what else do we have to do? I mean, not going anywhere. Most of us, we want to go out to eat. Even in driving through Ocean City, there's really not much to choose from, so why not have some place right at home? I know like the trivia nights, we did some sip-in shops and just little activities, and we can all still gather and kind of be that community when we don't have a place outdoors to go to. And I like the idea of having meeting spots, and if these rooms are full and you want a bunch of ladies to go play bridge, we can open up and have different activities going on, and even rent it out to like small clubs and stuff, because that upstairs isn't really getting much use anyway. But I think the more we advertise and letting people know, even doing like some weekly night specials like every other restaurant and bar does during the off season would help bring people in, and I think that would help sustain it enough over time with the right management.
Yeah, the yacht club, as some people would agree, is somewhat of political football. Everybody has their viewpoint on it. What I refer back to is the idea of sound business practices. If you look at the performance of the yacht club, especially in the off-season months, they continue to lose money. What seems to happen is that people say, well, I'm going to do something different, and it's going to be better, and then it happens the same way. And then another group comes along and says, we're going to do it better, and it happens the same way. We've got 10 plus years worth of that same sort of cyclical involvement of the idea of making it into more of a profit center during the year. Why doesn't someone have the courage to say, we should take a different look at it? We should say, based on that experience, we have to consider, in my opinion, two things. Number one, finding it a reasonable time frame to close it down. That's an immediate savings on the benefit. I tend to agree with Marty on this one with regard to, we understand what the fixed costs are going to be while the building is closed. I think somebody was looking at figures of 10 to 12 grand a month. All right. But there's no staffing involved. Certainly, we'll keep staff to run the environment throughout the winter months in other areas. The other thing too is that now that the Turns Grill is available, that could be a potential option for others to go to with regard to not having the yacht club, and that is a year-round building. Certainly, something that we should consider. And again, I talk about having the courage to do something different. At the end of the day, I would agree with Colette in the sense that one of the other areas that needs some attention is the management of the facility. Clearly, some marketing, some customer service, some quality needs to be injected into that place in order to turn a profit, but I don't think it'll be enough to cover it in the non-seasonal months, and it would be all for looking at those kinds of solutions going forward, at the very least involving not only consideration for closing, but considerations for bringing in outside help to potentially lease the whole operation if it made sense.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Colette, if you would pass the mic. Thank you. Having addressed the yacht club, what are your thoughts about other amenities here in Ocean Pines?
I guess another amenity that's been kind of a contentious issue is the golf club. We had it be maintenance and caretaking operations outsourced for quite a while. That's kind of gone back and forth. Now we have it back in-house. There's talk of, outsourcing all the food and beverage for the Pines, which would include the golf club. I think that's an idea worth looking at, but in looking at it, particularly with the golf club, we need to make sure that the outsourcing for the golf operations and the food and beverage work hand in hand with each other because they depend on each other. The Parks and Recreation over the last 7 years has been the biggest financial drain of the community, and I think we need to look at that. When I look at those numbers, it's salaries and programs that are contributing most to that negative variance, and I think we need to look at who's using those, what are we paying for. There's been a lot of talk about having differential payment or membership costs between residents and non-residents, and we need to look at whether or not those differentials are strong enough to support having a healthy budget for all of the amenities. One of the amenities that we use, a couple times a year is the boat ramp. There's been talk about, we show up at the boat ramp, there are no parking places. Are these voters Ocean Pines people, or are they community people? I think we need to get better data on who's using our amenities and what our assessments are paying for with respect to the support of all of the amenities, so that the best quality at lowest cost amenity experience is available for the residents and the homeowners. Thank you.
I don't have a whole lot of experience with the golf, with the turns drill and golfing, because I have a really bad slice and I'm not good around the trees. But I could say maybe adding some, I would say outsourcing that, and the yacht club may be a great, a good thing to look at. Just depends on the expertise of the new GM. So that really is kind of contingent upon how well that person, how proficient that person is. I do think that maybe adding food or beverages to some of the pools could help kind of make some of the pools, you know, just, I guess, kind of give them more than one purpose in that sense, and maybe it could be done by one of the other restaurants, so it could basically have another avenue of revenue there. And I agree, the dog park, even the pickleball, tennis, I don't know, I'm not sure how well the security is, but I know, I mean, how do we know who's using it, who has a membership and who doesn't? A lot of part-time people, part-time residents, vacationers, just using it, and we're paying for it. The members that are paying for it, you know, and everyone else is wearing and tearing on it. So that's just.
Yeah, I can spend time talking about all of the amenities, but let's focus on two of them. One, I'll start with the beach club. All right, what a fabulous amenity! What a wonderful thing we have. Let's not get mired in its success. Okay, let's not lose focus. That environment is not going to run itself. Okay, yes, it's self-sustaining. Yes, it's a moneymaker. Yes, we are very lucky to have it. But we, as a board and the staff and management, cannot lose sight of what it takes to keep that environment in the shape that it's in order to attract not only members but other customers outside of OPA, in order to continue to drive it as a profit-making amenity. The golf course. There's a lot of focus, a lot of talk has happened that the membership has dwindled to, I wish I had the numbers, it's under 100 now, I believe. At some point several years ago, it was over 800. Where I think some changes need to be made, and I would want to consult with the folks who are much more aware and intelligent and have the experience in this area, but marketing to the outside players. You know, how do we market the Ocean Pines Golf Course outside of Ocean City? We've got a wonderful course. I've played it, and as bad as I am, I still enjoyed it because it's a wonderful golf course. What are we doing, and what should we be doing to market that amenity so that it doesn't cause the kind of drain that it continues to cause in our environment? So I think those are two focus areas that we really should look at. I think it's one of the things we should task the new GM with when he or she comes on board and says, really, those are areas that we know, one is clearly a moneymaker, let's make sure it doesn't fall into disarray. And the second one is a potential moneymaker that needs to have more attention paid to it. And I think that's part of the amenities. That's only two. I have opinions about several of the other amenities, but I'm getting ready to get a sign held up to me that says stop, so I'll leave it with that.
Before I start, I want to make a couple quick comments on the downstairs.
Start the clock.
Peter Angelos, the owner of the Orioles, has never done anything that doesn't make money. Talking about free meeting spaces, or even charge meeting space in a $5 million facility, is not a business-like operation. A couple of people that don't know anything about business. Phillips family, the Harrison family, people that own Embers, the Harmons and Fishtails, they all close in the wintertime. I wonder why. Is that because they're dumb? No, it's because we're dumb. Okay. Golf. Every time you talk golf, there were this many rounds, there was this, there was that rack fee, there was this, there was outside play. Here's the facts. Last year, our golf course grossed $1,282,000. Eagles Landing, 18 holes, not as nice a golf course, owned by Ocean City, posted online in their audited reports, grossed $2,028,000. Did somebody put up a closed sign in front of our golf course? They don't even advertise as much as we do. Here's the sad part. River Run, $1,550,000. We stink. We have one of the nicest golf courses on the Eastern Shore, and we're third out of 3 in the competition. Why? I think it's because we're not going after the morning golfers, the people willing to pay the money. I'm talking about ask the hotel operator. A lot of them are friends of mine. Berger will not send a golf group to our golf course because slow play, members in the way. We focus on 100 members that paid $188,000 toward $1,200,000. We need to focus on retail play. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with Nicole. Thank you. Would you please tell us your thoughts about the Northgate Bridge?
Oh, great. I'm eager to Palmer Gillis with the Cancer Center. I'm just eager to hear the thoughts on what that could possibly bring, because I understand it could be an inconvenience to a few homeowners, but even if we could give them some kind of compensation and in turn have that be, a burden off of our backs and have like a really nice, I feel like the entrance of the gate, people pass by, that's straight advertising of what our community is. I know many people have hit that bridge, not me, but many people have, there's proof. And when I moved here, I was 5, we went and used that North Gate, we fished in that pond, that same bridge, and we used to ride our bikes in the same, and I think that that just needs a fresh look. Like I like the sign looks nice, but I think it's something that we should look into if someone's offering, I know we need to plan for the double road. I think that's something we should take into consideration, maybe do that, all at once, or and the roundabout turn, just trying to get the flow of traffic, because that light's not very long either, and having an access road could be beneficial to the community as a whole. Just people getting in and out for work and lunch hour, I know is pretty busy as well. Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, the iconic Northgate Bridge. I've heard some unsubstantiated rumors that the state is thinking about putting a circle, a roundabout, in that location and replacing the light that currently sits there. I think we need to take a wait-and-see attitude to see where the state is on this. I'm sure they're probably having some discussions with Palmer Gillis, because I'm sure he's very interested in how that intersection comes to bear going forward. I think it's prudent for us to clearly maintain what we have, but I think it would be presumptuous to start doing something if we didn't know what the state was going to do with that intersection of Ocean Parkway and 589. So, with the idea, if getting on the schedule or getting some information from the state on their plans going forward, we can certainly build our plans to say in lockstep with what they're going to do. And I think that people would probably benefit from a 2-lane exit road on the North Gate. But I think it's too early to do anything right now. I think while it services the environment, yes, it does get crowded at times. Yes, during the summer, you will wait at that light for some period of time. But putting any kind of association money into that, I think, is premature at this point until we understand what the state's going to do with that intersection.
That bridge fell into a state of deferred repair and maintenance that was only rivaled by our yacht club and our country club. In 2009, we were told to fix the guardrails. This was by the state engineers. And to put up some signs, take down some signs, add some lighting. That was just done this year. I think it was the old school thought from the old days of, well, if we don't fix it, it'll fall down and we can build something I'll really like. When people talk about the state highway department in 589, they should know that there was a meeting at Stephen Decatur about 6 months ago. Planning for that road isn't even in their budget radar for 10 years. So anything that we might do, which does anybody know what the Hatfields and McCoys are? You go out there to tear that bridge down, you best be armed. I mean, it's going to get mean. I don't care. I live on the south side, quite honestly. But there are people that love that bridge. I don't have a problem with it. Of course, I don't drive drunk and hit it either. But it does happen. But it's going to happen no matter what you put there. Palmer Gillis option's a non-starter. I mean, it just, to me, it's a non-starter. Unless Palmer Gillis buys every house on Dawn Isle and then convinces everybody that lives on the north side they're getting a traffic light on the Parkway. Because you'd have to have a traffic signal. How else would they get from Dawn Isle on it? You know, it's a 2-lane bridge, goes to a 2-lane highway. In summertime, it's going to be backed up. I don't know the answer. Keep it maintained, keep it pretty, keep it landscaped, do our job. It's past the inspections. Let's cross that bridge when we get to it.
I don't agree with bringing additional traffic through that intersection. It's not just in the summer that it's backed up all the time. And that's a big problem. I agree that we do need to coordinate any efforts to replace it with whatever the state is going to do. I think that all options need to be on the table. I think we need to look at what's going to be the most efficient way to increase traffic flow, make traffic flow more efficiently in anticipation of what the state may do. I don't think it's necessarily a problem that needs to be solved immediately, but I think fairly soon we do need to address it. We've got problems of aesthetics. The guardhouse has outlived its usefulness, and certainly in the summer we've got horrendous backups, so we will need to address it. I don't think we necessarily have to wait for the state to do, I'm no expert on highway planning, but I do believe that we can plan something that would be a flexible solution that would anticipate the options that the state might be reasonably considering. I don't know that a bridge replacement is going to be the best option for that, keeping that in mind. I think we may need to look at a road replacement with drainage ditches underneath. I think it can be landscaped to maintain the character of the pond and to allow for continued fishing for the people that want to fish in that pond. But I think overall we need to look at what's the long-term cost going to be and what's going to be our longest term value for whatever we invest in improving the problem.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Doug, but before we pose it, I'd just like to remind everyone here that there are cards and pens available on the table back there. If you'd like to suggest questions, we'll try to work them into either this forum or the next one. And for those watching virtually, we have email, and the Ocean Pines website forum is available for posting questions for us to consider. So Doug, the question for you is, what ideas do you have about improving community involvement in Ocean Pines?
Community involvement is obviously one of the things that I believe we don't take enough advantage of. Clearly, an easy target is the advisory committees. We have them. They seem to, in some cases, provide benefit, but I don't think the board is taking enough advantage of advisory committees. Other community involvement, things like the 50th anniversary committee. I think as events come up, I think there's a real desire for people to want to help and contribute and volunteer to pull off events like that. I think the interesting thing is trying to identify where we can really get events that are meaningful and that would drive some level of community involvement. I couldn't rattle off or give you a litany of things that would do that, but I think it would be an interesting discussion to have with the membership and get their idea of what kinds of things would interest them with regard to community involvement. I'd really like to understand what people think would be beneficial from the use of their time towards the community. I think it would be interesting discussion to have with folks to say, what's important to you that we're not doing right now that perhaps hasn't entered into our sphere of consciousness of things that we would think would be beneficial to Ocean Pines. So, community involvement is a little nebulous, but at the same time, I think there's an opportunity out there. But I will tell myself that I need help trying to generate some ideas on where we really could get some better community involvement. Certainly would lean on the membership to help me with that.
I'm not sure there's a problem. I mean, a lot of people, some people want to get involved, some people don't. Actually, I know more that don't than do. But for those that do, there's openings, I think, on I don't see anybody that would actually know. I mean, a lot of committees have openings, don't they? I mean, they're out there. Right Denise. We'll blame her. Give it to Denise. She will get you an application. We'll suit you up with something you're interested in. And, you know, I enjoy doing it. It makes me feel good to give back. And we need all the help we can get.
I think one of the most troublesome issues with community participation is making board meetings accessible to residents who are not here during the week. There are a lot of weekenders. There are people who are gone 6 months of the year. Those people are effectively disenfranchised when it comes to participating in board meetings and providing meaningful input as individuals to the decisions the board is making. I think we can look at scheduling the meetings at different times that make it more accessible, I think, for the people who are gone 6 months out of the year to be able to participate. We need to look at options such as live streaming with interactive capability. That would certainly carry costs with it, but I think it's certainly something worth looking at. The other thing we need to look at is allowing for written input for people. The bylaws require that we publicize in advance what the meetings are going to be about, when they're going to occur. We need to make sure that what's published is clear to the members as to what's going to be discussed. We just had a meeting the other night in which there was an agenda put out that really didn't explain what was going to be happening. People showed up to provide public comment. People were not in a position to comment because they didn't really know what the agenda was going to be. This is a problem. This disenfranchises us. So we need to make sure that members are apprised of what's going to be happening. We need to allow for written input. We need to make sure that meetings occur at their scheduled time and that the agendas are clear and forthcoming for all the members to be able to decide whether they can change their schedules to attend or they can provide written input. Thank you.
Piggybacking just off of one of the comments that Colette made, there are some really easy app configurations where you can actually put your input and ask questions, and it could be very easily done. I think that along with the advisory committees, I think that having maybe a fundraiser committee and to kind of get a little more personal, since basically for community, if you like, if it's something that you're interested in, you more intend to get involved. And then a lot of that has to do with your time. If you have a lot of extra time, or if you're retired, or you're looking for just to kind of do a little bit extra, it depends person to person. I think that if we did some kind of fundraiser, maybe working with local families and local fundraising, Diaconia, and some of those kind of community-based, that would help bring our, a little bit outside of our community, but still within our community. I think that might touch a few more people, and I know for myself, it's a little bit closer to home for me to want to get involved as well.
Thank you. The next question, we'll start with Marty. It's already been obliquely addressed already, but where do you see situations where outsourcing might be appropriate?
First, Dr. Ward, great answer on that last question. I mean, really good answer. Saturday meetings would be a plus. Outsourcing. When I look at numbers like these that are all red, I'd say pretty much any place. Our golf course, it's time we have somebody with skin in the game. Leasing it out. Somebody is either going to get a paycheck on Friday if it's good, and if it's bad, they're not. Right now, everybody gets a paycheck on Friday no matter what. We're running our business amenities like government, and everybody knows how well that works. I would outsource golf, I would outsource food and beverage in a New York setting. I might consider outsourcing some of admin. I mean, we had an opportunity a couple of years ago where a bank offered to do all of our billing, all of our bookkeeping, all of our collections, offered the highest CDR rates on all of our reserves. We didn't like them because we would have had to lay off staff. Love our staff, dedicated people. The board represents the membership, not the help.
I agree that outsourcing is an idea worth considering, and I think all options to remedy our revenue issues should be on the table for certainly the golf club and the yacht club. Those are the two most troubling revenue pictures. But these efforts have been tried in the past. We need to look at why those efforts were abandoned, and we need to make sure that if we do outsourcing, we're not recycling failed efforts. In considering what may be the best option for us, we need to look at each of the components individually. I talked earlier about golf operations versus food and beverage. We need to look at food and beverage restaurant versus banquet. These are all individual elements. We also have concessions at the golf club. These are all elements that could be outsourced and certainly should be looked at. But we need to look at whether or not our outsourcing efforts are going to allow for complementary delivery of services within those amenities, so that one arm knows what the other arm is doing, so that they can be communicating and collaborating on their efforts. If we decide to outsource, we need to be clear on what our purpose is. If we're looking to maximize our profit and share in the profit of whoever we outsource to, that means we're also going to be sharing in any losses. And there will be some losses in the beginning when a new business is getting itself up and running. So we need to be aware of that. We also need to bear in mind that the profit motive of our subcontractor may not align with the motives that we have. We are here as an organization to provide the best quality amenity experience at the lowest cost to our members. That may not align with the profit motive of the subcontractor. So we need to be sure that we're getting what we're asking for.
I agree. Having someone with a dog in the fight would be enough drive to get that person running that facility to continue and to foresee that amenity will succeed. I think that finding the right person with the correct goals in mind, maybe possibly even a home runner, someone that has the same kind of goals and same kind of goals that we do. I think that it has a lot. I think it's going to have a lot to do with the new general manager and what his or her position would have been in the past and what the expertise is, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I think this one's going to be easy to make unanimous. I'm on record during the budget planning meetings of pushing the concept of outsourcing, especially in areas where we don't have a core competency. Clearly looking at the fact that our businesses, our amenities are supposed to be run in a business-like fashion. Continuing to lose money arguably is not running them in a business-like fashion. And I think we owe it to the membership to at least investigate where we could possibly do that. Clearly, it's really easy to pick on the yacht club. Certainly, we think collectively, I would think there's more people who think there's at least benefit in looking at an outsourcing or some type of leasing agreement so that the operator proprietor has skin in the game. Where at the end of the day, it's not a financial burden on the membership. The golf course certainly comes in and is another potential one where we could look at outsourcing. I would, in my approach would be, let's do one of them. Let's look first of all at the feasibility of doing it, run the numbers, see if it's something that we can substantiate and sustain, and then run it as an operational environment and look and see where we get the feedback and the results of that effort, and then going forward, apply that if necessary, if reasonable, to other areas of the operation with the intent of, again, yielding the same kind of business-like benefit to the environment.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with Colette, I believe, but before we pose it, I see people writing on cards. Mr. Turner, standing right over there, will be glad to take your questions that you'd like to submit, and we'll consider them for inclusion tonight and or in the future. So, Colette, the next question, what thoughts do you have about improving activities for younger people in Ocean Pines?
We have a lot of good activities for younger people. Parks and Rec has a myriad of programs for kids of all ages. They have day camps, they have swimming, the aquatics department has swimming options. We have a brand new playground. I think that we're very successful right now with what we're doing for kids. And I don't see that needs to be improved. Of course, we need to receive input throughout the year and year after year from families, grandparents and parents, what their needs are for their children, and I think we need to be prepared to be flexible to address those needs. But I see kid participation in many of our venues. We have swimming, we have golf, we have fishing, we have sports, we have day camps. I think we're doing a great job with that, and I personally am satisfied.
I agree with our kids programs between the pool, the Parks and Rec, and all the camps. I believe that we're pretty proficient in that, and as well, those amenities have exceeded our expectations. One thing I would probably suggest to possibly look into is maybe to kind of do more work with the school we have right next door here at Shaw Elementary. That might be a nice asset for us, and maybe getting our kids involved more in the community if we cross paths with their PTA and administration program there.
Yeah, and I'd have to agree with Colette and Nicole. If you take a look at the annual guide, I think it's a very good representation of the amount of effort that's being put into programs for children. It was interesting. There was a discussion went back and forth about Ocean Pines being some top retirement community or something like that. And I think while the average age here, I believe, is pretty much up there, there's enough of a population of young children and young families with children that need to have use of those amenities and use of the programs. And I think again, looking at the annual guide, the amount of programs that are dedicated to younger folks of all ages, I think is a testament to the effect that we really do pay attention to that, and the programs are there and tailored for that demographic.
I raised two pretty nice girls in Ocean Pines, and my contemporaries had daughters that were their age. They live in Ocean Pines, and I'm sitting here scratching my head and trying to think, was there ever a facility that we used? My daughters, like their friends' daughters, like their friends' daughters, like the other kids. We live in a resort. They couldn't wait until mom and dad would sign the work thing so they could go to work on a boardwalk. I think Megan was hustling ice cream at the age of 11. Both of them, Lindsay probably had 8 years at BJ's, put herself through college, paid for it, thank you. And Megan worked at Siegert's and could have bought the college. My kids never used a facility at Ocean Pines. I mean, we might have gone to an Easter Bunny thing or something like that. The summer camp for our vacationers, great. It's always been the best on the beach. I'd continue it, make it better. I think that's a great asset. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just old. I don't remember my kids ever needing to go to an indoor pool. They went to the boardwalk, went to work. Who's next?
Well, thank you. The next question will start with Nicole.
Yeah, I would say.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay. Nicole and the rest of the candidates, the postal boxes in Ocean Pines are deteriorating badly. What would you propose Ocean Pines do?
I actually just started looking into that. I think that when it comes, especially the ones that are like rusting out, I don't think there's a need to really build anything on top of them to protect them. I think that the post office and the state should be responsible for maintaining those. It's their property anyway. Most of them are pretty pretty jacked up. But I mean, being under pine trees, I mean, what else do you expect? But maybe grabbing a few cases, give them a little bit, and if they'll replace those, then maybe give them a little bit more and a little bit more, and kind of work from there.
Yeah, I think, with regard to the postal mailboxes run by the postal system and not part of OPA, I think we've run into an issue of identification and awareness, where I think it's incumbent on us, because they're not going to take an active role in coming out and see the condition of every one of the mailboxes. I don't think that, well, I'll just speak for the person that I see delivering our mail, that they're diligent in putting the mail in the correct slots, but I don't see them taking pictures of the condition of the mailbox. So I think one of the things that's incumbent on us is to, number one, identify. I think we should at least rally a number of folks to say, hey, let's put an initiative together to say, where are the mailboxes that have the most, they're in the most level of disrepair. I think we put that information together and we send it to the appropriate folks in the post office as a part of an awareness. If they're not aware and we're not informing them, they're probably then, I'm going to guess they're not motivated to go out there every day and paint and sweep up and maintain that environment. So I think an issue of identification and awareness is incumbent on us. We start that dialogue with them with the intent of trying to get some result if we can.
Yeah, take notes. This very subject's on the agenda for the Environmental and Natural Assets Advisory Committee's meeting this month. Big pusher on this was, I don't know if any of you know Tom List. He used to run our golf course maintenance. He's lived here. He might have been 10th or 11th person to move in Ocean Pines. Great guy. I rode around the other day and just looked at mailboxes. My mailbox, you become, it's like you got blinders on. It's like you step over the rock in your driveway rather than pick it up. My mailbox collection area wouldn't be acceptable if I was renting a $100 a month trailer in Beaufort. It is awful. It's not safe, it's a mess, and it's not the post office's responsibility. It's our responsibility. I shouldn't allow it to look like that. Most of the older sections of Ocean Pines mailbox pickups are gross, and that's probably being kind. Go to the Point, look at theirs. Go to the entrance of the Colonial Village. The landscaping there, it looks like Lowe's Landscaping Center. Flowers, bushes, plants, roof, sanctuary, Turns Landing, park. Those are all beautiful mailbox areas. Why does the older sections look like hell? I think we need to put a budget together and put up, it's not a big deal to put a roof over it. Not talking to close it, just a gazebo roof. And then get the neighborhood participation and clean them up. There's no trash cans at any of the old sections. There's trash cans at all the new sections. So when you open your mailbox, people drop the junk. I think it needs a lot of work. I don't know the answer, but I'd like to address it. Who's next?
I thought this was kind of an interesting question. Our mailboxes are pretty okay where we live, so I was not really aware of a problem. But I did go and visit the postmistress and asked her about this. And she said, as Doug indicated, that the post office is responsible for the maintenance and care of the post boxes that belong to them. The postal workers are not the ones that are going to be reporting back to the postmistress that this work needs to be done. That needs to come from us. And she suggested that we contact the Public Works Department, who will then contact her to get the right people to come out and do the maintenance. If it's aesthetics, I think we have a couple of things about aesthetics we need to think about. One is, I think Marty makes a good point that the Environmental Committee could look at sprucing up the landscaping and the surrounding of the mailboxes. There may also be some communities that want to purchase mailboxes for themselves. If they don't like what the post office provides, they want something that's snazzier. That would be up to the neighborhood to put together an agreement and fund that. If they do, however, buy their own mailboxes, the post office will not be responsible for maintaining them. Then the responsibility is with the people who own them. What the post office will do is do the keying part of it, free of charge, but they're not going to do maintenance on something they'll be buying. So the postmistress was very open to the idea of coming out and painting, repairing, doing whatever needs to be done for our mailboxes. We just need to ask.
Thank you. The next question will start with Doug. Do you support the current BOD spending limit of $1.7 million without a referendum? Do you think it should be changed?
Yeah, that's a good question. The nature of a referendum obviously is going to cost us some money whenever it is that we need to produce one to get it out to all 8,452 members. And I'm just going back on recent history, where have there been any issues that would cause us to consider a spend at the level of 1.7 million or above? Right? So looking at that, we don't have any recent evidence that that's an actual issue. However, if you factor in the capital improvement plan that we're developing going forward, could we say or make that same statement a year, 3 years, 5 years from now? Don't know, because again, with inflation, changes in cost, whatever affects our current infrastructure, we may have to look at some point at an expense that's in excess of $1.7 million. I don't see the need right now, and I'll just base that on what we know now. Currently, we haven't had a need to do that, and then obviously in the near future, as much as we can tell, we won't have it, but I think that's a discussion for another time, should it be necessary. Again, but you also have to be careful that when you reach limits like that, you're actually taking some of the decision-making out of the membership and you're putting it more on the board. So the onus is on the board to make sure they do the proper diligence and making sure that when you're making an expenditure of that nature, it truly represents what the membership wants and needs. So it's a slippery slope. I think it's okay for right now, but certainly would be engaged in discussions on whether or not it's applicable going forward to increase it.
Now, this is a question that can be argued on either side with a straight face. It's working. I wouldn't change it. If I was going to change it, it would be lowered. I'm not worried about the cost of a referendum as much as I am shenanigans. You get yourself a lousy 4 people on the board, and it's happened. I don't know if anybody else remembers. Well, we could spend $1.4 million behind closed doors and buy a golf course. Made it all cash, $1.4 million. Our board of directors. And the price was baked, not anybody serving today. Made an all-cash offer based on the referendum amount. Because they knew if they triggered a referendum, they'd get hung. So you got to worry about the integrity of your board, not so much the limit. I think it was, here's a good idea. Let's lower the budget, and then we lower the threshold. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Thanks.
I agree with Doug that this spending threshold is probably suitable for our needs. I think the bigger issue is transparency. I talked a little bit earlier about how board meetings are not always, the agendas for board meetings are not always clear in communicating what's going to be discussed. I talked about the importance of getting member input into the discussion about important things during the board meetings, and we can only do that if we are encouraging transparency. And Marty is right, you may end up with 4 bad board members or 4 board members that you don't agree with. You need to have the opportunity to give your input to the board so that your priorities and your needs can be considered. So I can't emphasize enough how much I think we slipped away from transparency, and I think we need to pull ourselves back to transparency and decision making.
I'm going to pass on this question for not knowing and not wanting to throw any expertise. I don't have a lot of expertise in this area, but I'm willing to learn if I'm elected to help to get the pros and cons to see and take any suggestions on what can be done.
Thank you. Our last question, planned question for the evening, we'll start with Marty on rotation. What do you feel are the most significant issues you intend to address as a director?
It's simple. An honest, zero-based budget. What did it cost last year? What do we anticipate it's going to cost next year? Divided by 8,452. Bingo, assessment. If it's higher, it's higher. If it's lower, it's lower. Nothing political about it, it's numbers. I would not fund the legacy fund. What are they calling it these days? 5-year plan legacy.
The recovery.
Slush fund. I wouldn't put another $1. $7 million in the bank scares me to death, and I'm fearless. The second thing I would do is I would do my very best. My very best to stop this bleeding. And if that means closing the yacht club in the off season, like the Phillips would, like the Harrisons would, then I would close it. It's not a sign of losing or giving up. It's a sign of doing business the smart way. You can't run a 200-seat venue in the middle of Ocean Pines in the wintertime. If you don't believe me, we've been through 5 managers in 11 years. All red, never made $1 November, December, January, February, March, or April. Ever! Does somebody think we're going to do it better next year? Come on. Who's next?
Colette.
Yeah, I'm always after you, Mark.
Yeah.
That's not a good place to be.
So, one of my highest priorities is to make sure that we are eliminating conflicts of interest on our board. I think that's been a big issue that came up this year. I'm very concerned about transparency and decision-making. We talked earlier about, or some of us talked earlier about, how to get member input. I think this year we've had an unprecedented degree of marginalizing our committees. Our committees are there to be the voice of the membership. We need to bring that voice to the table. We need to use the committees to gather the data, gather the facts that we need to make good decisions, and we need to make sure that that information comes to the table. We need to empower the committees to be able to gather the information by having liaison with staff members and departments to the extent needed. I'm not talking about monopolizing staff time. I'm talking about bringing the information into the committees, into the table that's needed to make good decisions on our membership and our community's best interests. I am very concerned about fiscal accountability and due diligence in making spending decisions. If we're going to be establishing a high salary for our new GM, we need to make sure that we've got a salary study that truly reflects comparable responsibilities, comparable duties for a manager on the Eastern Shore. So I'm concerned about the fact that when I've seen comparative pricing, that we're comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges.
Go back to my opening statement. I want to try to address working with the code to be a year-round amenity. General manager, the transition to the general manager, obviously staffing from the top down, which would probably be necessary, and then discussing options for the Northgate entrances and funding if possible. Just a side note on that, right now we have an option to possibly get some of it funded for us, and there might be a time where the traffic flow coming out of that entrance makes you have to go to the Northgate in order to turn around. So there might be if there's no resolution through the state, they might kind of force us to put us in a position, or we may have to pay for it. ourselves, which we're prepared to do. But obviously, outsourcing any of that, any of those funds may be beneficial. I'm a hard worker. I'm honest. I'm really all for transparency and making sure that there's not any kind of like hidden agendas with any of, the board or committees or anything like that. And I promise to be open and take suggestions and help the best way I can.
In the statement I made to the media, I focused on two issues, and they're not really too difficult. One is the budget, the other is the yacht club. All right. Clearly, and I will say that because we didn't have a GM, because a lot of people were pressed into duty, the budget it was done well enough to get us through this year, and I think the folks that put it together should be commended. But we can't do it the same way next year. All right, we will have a GM in place. We will, at least if I'm still on the board, I will press to make sure that that GM takes guidance from the Budget and Finance Committee. Those folks have seen a lot of the budgets. It would be a great way to indoctrinate the new GM into the budget planning process so that he or she would have that reference point to allow them to approach the preparation of the budget in a more reasonable manner. And in a certain extent, I agree with Marty with regard to the zero-based budgeting. What is it that we have to spend in order to operate the environment? And how does that translate into per unit cost based on the 8,452 homeowners? And the other part, obviously, is the yacht club. I've said it before. We've got many years worth of data where we are losing money. We have to have the courage, and I will take that as a personal challenge to try to solicit input, get discussion, and bring that topic to bear, because we can no longer consider talking about it. We have to take action. 10 years, people have been doing the same thing. I said this already. It's certainly something that there's an opportunity for us to do better in that area. Those are my two areas of focus: budget and yacht club.
Thank you. That concludes our planned questions for this evening so far. And now we're going to move to closing statements. Each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes for a closing statement, and we're going to go in reverse ballot order. So now everybody gets to follow Marty.
You realize there's a cliff ahead.
So Marty, closing statement, please.
It'll be less than 3 minutes. Look at this, I'm already scaring people off. I again want to thank everybody in the room for coming out and showing your support of this function and your concerns about Ocean Pines.
Please use the microphone for the folks that aren't here. Thank you.
Thanks again for being here. And I want to wish my best to my capable opponents at the table. If I am awarded the privilege and elected to serve as your director on the board, it's my promise that my goal will be to promote a conservative-based budget, incorporating reasonable reserves. I will encourage sound, common-sense business practices at our amenities. I want to thank you again, and very much appreciate your consideration and your vote. Going this way?
Yes, sir.
So in closing, yeah, again, and I'm sure everybody, I appreciate everybody's time. Thanks for taking the time to come listen not only to what I have to say, but the other candidates here. I did this last year and came away with a better appreciation. Quite frankly, a lot more knowledge than I had the first time. I could say that in this case, it's the same way. Understanding what people's different perspectives are on things is an educational opportunity that I always sort of cherish. My desire, again, is to be afforded the opportunity to continue to serve on the board and to continue the work that we started this year. We've accomplished things. We still have more things to accomplish. As I said in the opening statement, here we are now. Where do we need to go? Where do we need to get there? And how do we get there? Okay. We also need a level of continuity. All right. Having been on the board, worked very hard in establishing those relationships among other board members, and to make sure that we foster those relationships so we can work together as a team to continue addressing the issues that are very important to the membership. So when you're thinking about a vote, think about someone that's got board experience and that has that ongoing commitment to Ocean Pines. If there are any questions that you may have regarding current issues, future issues, my position on things, please reach out to me. You can reach me via the Ocean Pines website. My email address is on there for anybody who is interested. Certainly, I'm always welcome to take phone calls, and anything I can do, not only to educate myself on what the community needs, but how I can enact those to make this a better place. Thank you.
I feel like I just bring a new perspective to the board. Obviously, a little bit younger than any other candidate, maybe ever. What?
Really?
I think our community is pretty competitive. I mean, we have a lot of other neighboring communities over the years, and though we are the biggest, we still have to be competitive. Having those amenities, you know, advertising those amenities, bringing as new people come in and the current people using our amenities and facilities, I think that's key to seeing our whole community thrive as a whole. Growing up here has been my childhood and soon to be my children's home. I have heartwarming memories of the beach club and all the places, all the different, actually this rec, not this rec center, but the one before, and activities and pool days with my family, making essential structure updates will ensure the constant growth and please all demographics. Not the current residents, but for future generations to come. An extensive marketing background, business management, including my own, and I consist in being fiscally responsible for budgeting, because obviously we all want to pay less assessment fees. For an opportunity to be more hands-on in the community, with my flexible schedule, I work basically from home, bringing attributes that are unique to the current team. I think I've definitely, just having a different age and as diverse as this community is, from children all the way up to, you know, college age and so on, shouldn't the board's representatives be diverse as well? Thank you for all your time coming today.
I want to thank you also for coming out tonight and giving us your attention. And I trust that you'll go away tonight with a better understanding of some of the differences among the four of us. Earlier I talked about differences between what you expected and what actually materialized from the four candidates from last year's forum who now serve on the board. I'm hearing in the community that a lot of people are feeling a bit burned right now. Some good things were accomplished this past year. Projects that have been set in motion and budgeted by the previous board and administration were finally completed. But there was a lot of controversy sown this past year. Controversy that has distracted our board from some of the important work that you elected them to do. And so distrust among members about whose agenda was being served. So you won't have to worry about being burned by me if I'm elected. I ask you to reflect on my positions. Let me tell you how I would have voted on some of the controversial issues that were decided during this past year. Last September, I would have voted in support of a working group to move the search for a new GM forward right away. If the majority of the board had voted with me, I believe we would have avoided many of the problems that we have now. When it became clear that the acting GM's interactions with staff were seeding chaos, I would have joined with directors who voted his removal from the GM position. I would have voted to stabilize the personnel problems and institute corrective actions that were reasoned and balanced, not to throw capable and loyal people out with the proverbial bathwater. When I saw that the salary proposed for the GM position substantially exceeded the salary of our governor and our county administrator, I would have voted no. Before going forward and setting the salary, I would have wanted to be completely confident that the proposed salary was based on truly comparable positions and responsibilities for nonprofit managers in this region of the state. When I first read about the 20% food and beverage discount, I thought it was great. I was going to save some money. But then I thought, wait a minute, our budget is already set. How can we afford this? How is this going to impact operation costs? Are we going to find ourselves at the end of the year using member assessments to underwrite other people's meals and alcohol? When the board reviewed this unbudgeted 20% discount, I would have voted no. If you would like to be represented by a board member who will vote in these ways, if you would like to be represented by a board member that has some different kinds of skills, I ask you to vote for me. Thank you.
I'd just like to thank all the candidates tonight, and let's give them a round of applause. I also want to thank Charlie for all his work. Hopefully the audio video has come through to those who are watching or will watch in the future. Just a reminder, we are planning to have a second forum on July 22nd here in this building at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's a Saturday. We're wanting to do that to accommodate people who are not able to be here on a Wednesday night. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate you giving your time, and thank you again to the candidates.
Yeah, it's one of their favorite. You feel like